just explain to you a little bit, if you don't know, what National History Day is and what you're watching right now. National History Day has been around for about 40 years, and it's a competitive program that millions of kids participate in throughout the U.S. And they do very intensive research on a topic, and the topic is usually guided by the year's theme. This last year, the theme was Revolution, Reaction, and Reform in History. And they can pick a topic then that any way relates to that. It can be international, U.S., ancient, more modern. One of our other groups in town did the history of the Endangered Species Act, so they were able to throw their love of science in along with history. And after you do all that research, then you create an entry, a competitive entry. And it can be a traditional paper, it can be an exhibit, a documentary, a website, or a performance. And so that really helps kids find kind of their niche of interest on top of doing the research. And then you can also compete as an individual or in a group. And they divide it by age groups. You have 6th through 8th graders and 9th through 12th graders that compete. And so the reason that we're here today is because the topic that Heather and Katie chose this year, this is their 4th year competing together, came from a casual conversation I had with Andrew about 3 years ago when he mentioned, oh, there's this really cool exhibit, the history is so interesting. And we all said, oh, History Day, that's a History Day topic. And so we've been waiting for a theme that went with it. And so they were delighted to finally be able to do a project on it. And it has to do with an exhibit, Advancing American Art, that the museum owns a portion of, and the whole exhibit, or almost all of it, is being brought together again for the first time since its original debut on September 7th here. It'll be here in the fall. So this is kind of an interesting prequel to that. So Heather and Katie competed on the state level and then went on to nationals, and they won a bronze medal out of 79 other competing groups. Really exciting because it's very difficult to do that. If you want any more information on National History Day, if you're interested in encouraging somebody to try it, there's some flyers in the back there. National History Day was awarded a Humanities Medal this year by President Obama, so it's really a growing program, doing very well. And you can also see their bibliography and their process paper back there, because that's part of the competition that you have to submit that, and you also have to go through a judge's interview, which is quite nerve-wracking. And so the girls are really excited to perform one last time with no time limit and no judges. And so, without further ado.
I'm Katie Kirk.
And I'm Heather Connelly.
A Tragedy of Errors, America's Hypocritical Reaction to Artistic Diplomacy. Fall 2012.
Hello, everyone. Wow, it's been a long time since anyone stopped to listen to me. Well, anyway, you're here now, and if you don't mind, I'd love to tell you my story. That's me, Subway Exit by Woodskill Glen. I'm part of, well, actually, my story doesn't really start with me. It starts with a new kind of war. In the late 1940s, the Cold War revolutionized our very definition of war. Rather than fighting with bullets and bombs, the United States government was faced with the task of capturing the hearts and minds of influential intellectuals in nations undecided between communism and capitalism in Europe and Latin America. While the Marshall Plan was planned to meet Europe's physical needs, what we needed was a cultural Marshall Plan. Exhibits of traditional art had been touring Europe, but our embassies now asked for something fresh. The United States Cultural Affairs Program commissioned a modern art exhibit. Leroy Davidson chose 117 modern paintings, bought us for the State Department, and entitled us Advancing American Art. We were a testament to democracy. That meant that some of us were pro-capitalist, but others could be interpreted as anti-capitalist. And because of our freedom, that was all right. In 1946, we were put on display for the first time at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City. One of my closest friends in the exhibit was A Dark Thought by Warner Drews. Because the artist painted such a gloomy moment, Dark Thought herself was always depressed. I, on the other hand, was painted to be dramatic, and I was swept away by the fame and fortune of our international tour. Oh, that was the time of my life.
Prague, Czechoslovakia, 1947.
Hello, Czechoslovakia!
Won't you just hush? You're making me sick. Again.
How can you be so grumpy? For cubism's sake, we're in Prague. Advancing American art. We're fresh, modern, abstract. It's a Marshall Plan for the mind. A revolution in diplomacy. We're going to be famous.
Great Georgia O'Keeffe, you are getting under my brushstrokes. I'm going to go eat some of that abstract fruit.
The president of Czechoslovakia has been here for more than an hour. Wasn't he only supposed to stay for 15 minutes? That's exciting! He must like me.
Listen, I heard them talking. The guards. America is bringing us home. Some magazine called Look ran an article about us, blaming the government for using taxpayer money to buy us. It was entitled, "Your money bought these paintings." They're saying we're un-American. They're saying we're too modern. They're saying our artists are capitalists. I mean, wait, they're capitalists and they're saying that our artists are communists.
How hypocritical can you get? Aren't we supposed to represent a new kind of art? Aren't we supposed to represent freedom of expression? And now, America's telling us we're too modern, that we're not free. Washington, D.C., summer 1948.
International leaders loved us. All but a few artistic journals in the United States loved us. Most of the popular press loved us. With a small section of conservative artists and a single, powerful group of publications, one negative reaction led to another, until finally, Congress brought us home. What a tragedy of errors. Traditional artists, led by the conservative American Artists Professional League, or AAPL, resented their exclusion. To them, modern art meant all current art. But since the more traditional side of current art had already been displayed in previous government art exhibitions, American embassies abroad requested examples of the new abstract styles. Nevertheless, the AAPL bombarded the public with criticisms of every aspect of advancing American art, using blatant congressional connections, an impending election, a letter-writing campaign, and news articles. Our modern art was called the incomprehensible, ugly, or absurd works of a lunatic fringe. We were a lopsided representation of America, purchased with American taxpayer dollars. We were meant to show the world how open America is. And when our artists freely painted what they wished, we were labeled a red art show. McCarthyism at work. After we were recalled to America, we were sent to government committees. We were ridiculed by the very government who sent us abroad in the first place. And finally, sent to the War Assets Administration for disposal. Those in the government who tried to stand up for us ended up losing their jobs. Maybe if we had been allowed to continue touring the world, maybe we could have reformed the perspectives of influential intellectuals. But instead, America's reactions toward us proved the hypocrisy of our own nation. We failed. We're junk. That is all we are. Junk. Fall 2012.
That's when our story started to fall apart, and we were packed away in boxes as surplus war assets. All 117 of us were sold for $5,500. Just thinking of that auction still hurts. George O'Keeffe's Hill went for $50. Hunger by Ben Shahn was sold for $60. Ironically enough, Hunger is now the most familiar social realist painting of the 1940s, and it's worth 1,000 times what it was sold for.
Looking back, it seems so surprising that it was in America, of all places, in which we were rejected. I guess in the heat of the controversy, reaction, compounded reaction, until finally the whole cultural affairs program just blew up in our faces.
Wasn't it less than a year later that, look, the magazine that started the article that started all the arguing, didn't they publish a poll of the 11 best painters in the U.S.?
Yeah, and 7 of them all had at least one painting in advancing American art, which does make me wonder, did people's reactions change? Or did we start a reform in the way people view freedom of expression?
Well, I know we made at least a few people realize that what was important about us wasn't what other people thought of us. It was that, in America, people should be allowed to create art like us, regardless of what other people think.
No. When America recalled us, it sent the opposite message. That we weren't really free.
Ever since we were rejected in Washington, dark thought seems to have just given up. I guess it was hard for her to see that some of the complaints were reasonable. Many people find modern art difficult to appreciate, and it's understandable that they wouldn't want to stand up for us. But none of that would have mattered if people had realized before they reacted that we were supposed to be a diplomatic move, not an artistic statement. Well, anyway, you're here now, and you're listening. And you, the Americans still learning from our mistakes, you're part of our legacy. It's beautiful, isn't it? The Jewel Collins Smith Museum of Fine Art in Auburn, Alabama. Remember the auction? Well, Auburn University and 3 other public universities bought parts of the collection each. That kind of draw revolutionized Auburn's interest in art, both at the university and in the community. This museum was created partly to house us, and now 100 of us have been brought together here so the world can hear our story. You know, I think that overall, our story ends well. While our mission to reform world perspectives of American culture was a tragedy of errors, the complex chain of reactions demonstrated a need for reform in the relationship between government and art, and in the way we view freedom of expression. And in that, our legacy will live on.
We have ever gotten, or at the community theater, or anywhere.
It was all I could do not to stand up, you guys. For the museum, from the museum's heart and soul. I'm the director, and I can't tell you how proud I am.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you everyone for coming.
When in the fall, when the exhibit is here, will they be allowed to open it?
Will they be allowed to open it? Can I have a conversation with my staff and think about that? Because I bet you
I can't imagine him more
very
fitting.
cool.
Yes.
It would be
fabulous.
Yes. Well, Kelly says yes, so I don't know why you're arguing.
They should walk around during the opening wearing the...
And this is me.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you everybody for coming.